There is a weapon in PvE that is one of the best weapons in the game, even though it has no right to be, and that's the Obsidian Edge Blade, which I've been sporting for a while until I got my Untamed Blade. And it turns out the Untamed Blade, according to the Sims, is like only 5 more freaking DPS than this. So yeah, that was a wasted soft res, I guess. I wanted to have it anyway. It looks cool and it's better for PvP, so you got that going on. But why is the Obsidian Edge Blade so freaking good that you can take a weapon that has 5 more DPS and gives you 300 freaking strength somehow is barely better than the Obsidian Edge Blade? Well, we are going to be talking about weapon skill and why weapon skill is such a big deal. Now, you can see the Obsidian Edge Blade is going to give you 8 weapon skill, which is a lot of weapon skill. As you guys know, the racial ability for weapon skill is going to be for humans 5 to swords and mace, and for orcs is going to be 5 to axes. Now, the racial is for both 200 axes and 100 axes, but here is going to be why 200 falls off after BWL. Like you saw, I got a weapon that is a tier higher and I barely got any more damage. What is weapon skill? This chart, which I am going to be leaving in the Discord, it shows you the delta, that's the difference between the boss's defense skill and your weapon skill. Of course, a boss is level 63 and that means that the boss is going to be 315 defense. So if you have a delta, a difference of 0, that means you have 315 weapon skill. That of course is never going to happen. So if you have no weapon racial, you're going to be here at minus 15 because you're 15 lower. And if you do have a weapon racial, you're going to be at 10. And there is 2 things that are going to change. As you can see, your hit cap, the amount of hit gear you are going to need, goes from the 9% to 6% if you have a weapon racial, which is pretty freaking bonkers. But that is not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, because by the time you go to BWL and you get some of your ranking gear or you get your rings and everything, 9% hit is not a lot of hit. You got Don Julio's, you can get your hit trinket. The actual best in slot is 7% hit anyway, so all you gotta do is sacrifice 1 item and you get all the hit you need. It is not a big deal. The problem, however, is on this column. Glancing penalty. What is the glancing penalty? Your white attacks, that is not abilities, just your auto attacks, they have a chance to do a glancing blow. It is a blow that has less damage. Now, this is a problem because, as you guys know, white hits are where you generate your rage. So glancing blows, it means a lot less freaking rage. And also, glancing blows cannot crit. And that's the big one. That means that your crit cap on white attacks is gonna be lowered. Getting a weapon racial will increase your crit cap by about 10%. Once again, that's only on the white hits, that is not on the yellow hits, but that's still significant. Auto attacks are about 30% of your damage, so losing, let's see here, 35% of your attacks 40% of the time, that's a big deal. That's a lot of damage that you're losing. But it also means you are losing a hell of a lot of rage. So less abilities, less heroic strikes, less execute, less everything. And no matter how much gear you get, you are always going to be behind somebody with a racial ability. There is no way to overcome this with gear, except there is. And this is why two-handers suck. I'm sorry, I am a two-hander fanboy, I am a two-hander dreamer, but we gotta be straight here. Of course, if you are an orc, you can go for two-hander axes. If you are a human, you can go for two-hander swords or maces, because the racial is also for maces. But if you got neither, you are freaking screwed. The most common item to get weapon skill is gonna be the Edge Master's very iconic gloves. You can get them for about 800 gold. On Night Slayer, it is probably cheaper on other servers, but 800 gold, it is not so bad right now. It is pretty affordable. 7 axes, daggers, and swords. That doesn't include two-hander axes and two-hander swords. It is only for one-handers. Now, if we look at this +7 and we go back here, that will turn your glancing blows from 35% into 7%. That is barely noticeable. Yes, your crit cap is still going to suffer a little. Your actual glancing chance also goes down when you get weapon skill, but you're gonna be able to generate so much rage and a little bit of damage that it is still worth it to sacrifice your entire gloves just to get weapon skill. And this actually gets worse with gear, because this is a scaling mechanic, right? If glancing blows are reducing your damage, in effect, when you get rid of that reduction, you are multiplying your damage. So it is extremely exponential, and the more gear you get later on, the more important weapon skill becomes. It is a little counterintuitive, but weapon skill is more and more important over time. And that is not considering the 3% hit you don't need anymore, which is kinda nice, but it is not the big part. So how do you get weapon skill if you do not have a racial? As I said, you can get the Edge Masters. This is the default choice for most warriors, and for good reason. It is +7 weapon skills on axes, swords, and daggers, which are the most common weapons. The only one you're missing out really is maces. There is not a lot of great maces in raids anyway, so that is not a problem. As a matter of fact, most DPS warriors are gonna go for either an axe or a sword, and a dagger offhander because they want a fast offhander, and daggers are very easy to get. There is a lot of daggers. There is daggers in Molten Core and BWL and Solgorov that are very good. Of course, rank 14 only has swords and daggers for offhanders, so if you go rank 14, Edge Masters lets you go for that too, even if you're in the Horde. Otherwise, you gotta farm an offhander somewhere else because they only got a main hander axe. There is no fast offhander in axes from PvP for some reason. Kinda weird. However, if you are a tank and you do not have Thunder Fury yet, every tier has a really good dagger because tanks want very fast weapons and they do not care about weapon scaling because they do not do Whirlwind or anything like that. None of their abilities scale with weapon damage, so they just want a quick weapon that can do as many heroic strikes as possible. So they essentially, until they get Thunder Fury at least, they get away with murder. They cannot get a weapon racial and they can go for dagger skill because dagger items are pretty easy to get. You can get this from Molten Core, 1% crit, 5 dagger skill and 15 strength. It is really freaking strong. It also has fire resistance, which is very important for a tank. Even though they are leather and you sacrifice some armor, they are really freaking good. They can also go for the belt in Dire Maul, which is obviously not nearly as good, but 1% crit and 5 daggers, it is always a good choice. So you might be thinking, should I go daggers? Because dagger items are very easy to find and, you know, I might as well go for the easy thing and that way I don't have to get Edge Masters, I don't have to do anything. Well, you may think that, but there is a problem. And once again, this doesn't count if you are a tank. First of all, Whirlwind, one of your abilities in your rotation is going to be Whirlwind, and that ability scales with weapon damage, and it actually is normalized. That means that there is a flat attack power scaling that goes to the weapon, and for some reason, daggers get a lower attack power scaling than other weapons when you do Whirlwind. Do not ask me why, but that's a thing. It is normalized to a speed of 1.9. If you want to look that up, it is odd. So you are sacrificing not a lot of damage, but a significant amount of damage. We're talking like, I don't know, 20-30% less damage on your Whirlwind. That is not nothing when that's one of the 2 abilities you do, right? It is absolutely significant. But also, because of how Wind Fury works, because of the way that Wind Fury works, if you are in the Horde, you get less value from Wind Fury the faster your weapon. And also, you want to queue Heroic Strike, so you do not miss with your offhander as much because you get rid of the miss penalty, and you cannot glance when you Heroic Strike. Heroic Strike is technically an ability, and abilities cannot glance. But since your weapon is faster, you're gonna be doing a lot more Heroic Strikes, which is a problem because Heroic Strike is not a high priority for you. You just wanna have it queued so you cannot glance, but that's about it. So you are wasting twice as much rage on Heroic Strike than a weapon that is a 2.9, for example. So you are less rage efficient as well. That is not to say that dagger warriors are impossible. There is plenty of warriors that play daggers and it is a decent class, a decent spec you can play, but it is absolutely not ideal. Also, most guilds are not gonna give you 2 daggers. Most guilds prioritize daggers for rogues, which makes sense. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. Off-hander daggers are very good for warriors, but main-hander daggers, like 2 daggers, that's pushing it. But hey, if you are a new character, you are fresh off the boat, and you want to go for daggers, and you want to just get a Mogger's belt, and then whenever you can figure out what you're gonna do for your weapon, you can go somewhere else. You can go for daggers for a while. A lot of people at the launch of a server go for daggers. It is not that bad, even though it is not great either. As a matter of fact, one of the funny things is you want a fast off-hander, right? Like the faster your off-hander, the more you can keep up deep wounds on the target. There is this little dagger in Dire Maul that gives you 6 dagger skill. It is only off-hander. Of course, it is not ideal forever because it is a crappy blue dagger, but pre-raid best in slot, any race can use this dagger and you can get a good off-hander no matter what. So you can also go dagger warrior fresh off the boat and get this off-hander from Dire Maul, and you can coast on that for a while. Now, having talked about the dagger thing and why daggers are not ideal, there are some other choices you can go for. One of those choices is this helmet. It is about 200 gold in my server right now. It is very cheap. It gives you 7 axe skill, that's pretty much all you get. You get 5 agility too, I guess. Now this will never be best in slot because Edge Masters is glow gloves, and wasting your glove slot is a lot better than wasting your helmet slot. Helmets got a lot more stats than your gloves, especially if you're talking about Lionheart or the rank 13 helmet. They are really good. But if you are broke and you do not want to farm for Lionheart, this will give you an excuse to not get Lionheart and to not get Edge Masters at the same time. You saved yourself like 1500 gold. Actually more, Lionheart is 2k. 2700 gold! Neat! But Medina, I don't want to do that. That's cheating. I don't want to sacrifice an item slot. That's stupid. Well, you should have played an orc. But otherwise, if you do not like orcs, if you want to be a tauren because you are an alpha male and you know what's good for you, you are going to be facing tough choices. One choice you're going to have available right now is going to be Maladath. This is a fast sword that drops in BWL. It is fairly rare and it is intended as a tanking weapon. As you can see, it is quick, it has parry on it. It gives you 4 sword skill. Now 4 sword skill is not ideal because that only gives you 1% hit. If we go back to the chart, you see right here your hit cap is 8% instead of 6. But glancing blows are only 19% compared to 15%, so you are not losing that much on the glancing blow department, which is the part that really matters. So even though Maladath is also not ideal, it is very much a really good choice if you can get it. Now, if you are not a tank, good luck on that. Good luck on that, my brother. You are not gonna freaking get it probably, but you could get it. We also got Solgorov coming in very soon, and there is another choice you can go for, and that's gonna be the Solgorov weapon set. There is 2 swords that drop in Solgorov that together, when you are dual wielding, you get 6 sword skill. Now, this is also more or less a tanking weapon because they are both really freaking fast, or a rogue weapon, really. It is more of a rogue set. They are 2 swords of 170, but since they are swords, even though they are very fast, they are normalized to 2.6, so your attack power scaling on whirlwind is not gonna suffer as much. You are only losing your weapon damage scaling, which is not great, but it is very little compared to wearing a dagger. This is a lot better than daggers. The problem is they are kind of underwhelming. Like a 50 DPS main hander, it is not a very good main hander. A molten core weapon like Perdition Blade got 58, so going for a 50 DPS weapon is also not ideal, but hey, a lot of casual players are doing Solgorov because Solgorov is a very cool raid to do, and if you do not want to get an Edge Masters, if you do not want to get a weapon racial, this is very much something you can go for. It is gonna take you a while to get both of them, and good luck arguing with rogues about it because rogues are not gonna be happy, but you might as well do a Solgorov and don't get rogues in the raid or reserve it for yourself or something like that. Solgorov is a 20 man, so getting gear for yourself is pretty easy if you stack up the raid accordingly and you host it yourself, so it is very much a possibility. When you come to AQ 40, you can get this mace, the Anubisat Warhammer, which is 52 DPS and 4 mace skill instead of 6. Once again, 4 is not ideal, but it is workable. This would be a really good off-hander, but there is not a lot of great main-hander maces, so you are hitting the same problem as before. Probably not ideal. And of course, the ultimate weapon racial, you get it at Nax Ramas, and that's gonna be the Hungering Cold. This is outright the best off-hander weapon in the game, period, even regardless of the racial. It has 73 DPS, it is absolutely freaking insane, but it also gives you 6 weapon skill on swords. So if you are a Fury Warrior, you can put this on your off-hander, which is the best in slot anyway, and you can go for 2 swords and you're gonna be best in slot without sacrificing any item, 0 compromises, and you still get a weapon racial. And that's why this is one of the most coveted items in the game. If you do not have a Thunder Fury and you're a tank, this will also be a great weapon for tanking. It is really fast, and you can put it on your main hand too. So pretty much anybody, rogues, warriors, prot warriors, everybody wants this weapon. And that is to say, you are probably never going to get it. Drop rate is 13% of Okel to Sad, so your chances are very freaking slim. 25 warriors in the raid, and every single one of them wants it, including the tank, because tanks are gonna dual wield tank at some point. Even if they do have a Thunder Fury, you want an off-hander, obviously. And the rogues too, everybody wants it. 0 freaking chance you are getting this weapon. And that means, I am afraid, you can play a human, you can play an orc, or sooner or later you're gonna be thrown into Edge Master Town. There is no way around it. You are sacrificing a lot of gear without weapon skill, and you can only coast so far without weapon skill. This is my warrior. I got the Untamed Blade, which is a great weapon, but I do not have a racial. Yeah, it is fine for now, right? It is a tiny upgrade from my Obsidian Edge Blade, but every single tier that comes out, I'm gonna be falling farther and farther behind. So I will eventually be forced to get an Edge Masters and go for dual wield like everybody else. I'm not sure when, maybe when I get rank 14. If I get rank 14, that's probably when. But I will tell you something. I identify as a huge bull monster and I will not change that. I am not playing an orc. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with orcs, but I am a tauren and I will be a tauren forever. So I cannot play two-handers for very long. I am gonna be out of town for a couple of days, got a big family thing, so we are not gonna have a lot of videos this week. I'm sorry guys. See you Monday, subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.